Thank you, Leslie, for the kind introduction. You had a couple facts wrong, but they all aired on the positive, so I'm going to not correct you on that.
You're already eligible to be here.
It's an honor to be here, and thank you all for coming. I'd like to introduce a few people, and please hold your applause for them till I finish. So first of all, the most important person in my life is here, Thelma Coleman. Mom, raise your hand. No applause, please. She deserves several Bronze Stars for raising me, believe me. But also one of the first lawyers I ever met was Bill Bailey, who's here. Thank you, Bill, a former partner with a prominent Seattle law firm and a distinguished member of the bar. And getting innocent people out of prison, which is what Judges for Justice does and has been successful at, is a bucket brigade. And we got a number of members of the bucket brigade here. My sister Karen, she was our case manager, and her husband Paul are here. The Honorable Jay White, retired judge, King County Supreme Court, he helps out a lot. And Carol Shapira is going to be here. But one of the most important guys is the camera guy back there, our videographer, Faraz. He does awesome work. And so let's give them all a big hand. Thank you. Over the next 30 minutes, you will see a shocking crime, why we believe the 3 men that were convicted of the crime are innocent. We will discuss the wrongful conviction climate and how wrongful convictions happen, the pathology of a wrongful conviction. We will discuss the Judges for Justice methodology, how we go about attempting to help people that are innocent get out of prison. On December 24th, 1991, 23-year-old Dana Ireland was riding her bicycle in the Kapoho area of the Big Island. That's about 30 miles south of Hilo on the east side of the Big Island. She was run over by a motor vehicle. You are looking at a crime scene photo of Dana's bike. You can see the seat's missing, a pedal's missing, and it's completely caved in. We call the collision site Crime Scene 1. After running her over, she is put in a vehicle and taken to a remote location, a fishing trail about 5 miles north in an area called Wawa. There she's dumped into some bushes, sexually assaulted, and left to die. A woman living in the area finds Dana still alive, but unfortunately Dana dies of internal bleeding at 12:25 a.m. Christmas morning at the Hilo Hospital. This map shows the approximate location of the crime scenes. Crime scene 1 is at the bottom of the map. Crime scene 2 is at the top of the map. On the right photo is an actual crime scene photo of crime scene 2. Notice the blue object. It is a blue t-shirt, and it's soaked with Dana Ireland's blood. That blue t-shirt is the most important piece of evidence in this case. If you don't do anything else, follow the blue t-shirt. The police don't get anywhere for 2.5 years, and then a man named Frank Pauline comes forward. He's an incarcerated prisoner, and he confesses to being involved in the Dana Ireland murder. He says that he had 2 brothers, Albert Ian Schweitzer and Sean Schweitzer, were involved with him in the crime. They were driving in the Schweitzer 1957 VW Bug. They ran over Dana Ireland. They put her in the trunk and took her to another location where one of the Schweitzer brothers sexually assaulted her, and then they left her there. Quick timeline. December 1991, Dana Ireland kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered. June 94, Frank Pauline confesses, implicating the Schweitzer brothers. August 94, teeth marks do not match the bite on Dana. January 96, Frank Pauline recants. He takes back his confession. He says, I lied. January 99, sperm DNA is no match to the 3 suspects. August 99, Frank Pauline is convicted. He gets 180 years in prison. February of 2000, Albert Ian Schweitzer is convicted. He gets 130 years. April 2000, Sean Schweitzer, the last defendant, pleads guilty to manslaughter. They drop the rape charge, and he walks out a free man with 5 years probation. December 2007, we're going to learn that a DNA test of the T-shirt is no match to either of the three suspects. So a number of red flags jump out in this case. And by the way, we have a total video of this called Who Killed Dana Ireland? It's on our website at judgesforjustice.org. You can get a lot more detail about this crime and the wrongful convictions by watching that video. But the number one some of the red flags that jumped out. Number one, teeth exemplars were taken in '94 when Frank Pauline first confessed of the three defendants. The bite mark on Dana's breast does not match the teeth of the three men. Red flag number two. In January 1999, DNA taken from sperm fractions do not match the three defendants. The yellow highlighted sentence reads, F. Pauline, A. Schweitzer, S. Schweitzer are all eliminated as the source of the DNA obtained from the sperm fractions of the vaginal swabs. Red flag number three. During the trials of Frank Pauline and Albert Ian Schweitzer, 3 witnesses testified that the bloody blue T-shirt found at crime scene 2 belonged to Frank Pauline. Even though Frank Pauline had recanted, his T-shirt at the crime, covered in Dana Ireland's blood, put him at the crime and got him convicted. This was the critical prosecution evidence that convicted both Frank Pauline and Albert Ian Schweitzer. The problem? It's not true. It's not Frank Pauline's T-shirt. In 2007, we learned that the T-shirt DNA does not match Frank, Ian, or Sean. And oh, by the way, as you might suspect, it does match the DNA of the man who left the sperm. So we know the critical evidence that the T-shirt belonged to Frank Pauline was false. Red flag number 4. There are tire marks, tire tread marks at both crime scenes. They're about 8 inches wide. They have similar matching tread. The second location was extremely remote. Very few cars, so that has to be Dana Ireland's killer's vehicle. The problem is the Schweitzer VW had tires that were 5 inches wide, and certainly the tread did not match that those tire marks. Some additional red flags is that when you have a confession, whether it's recanted or not, you look, does the confessor say something that only somebody at the crime would know? And in this case, Frank Pauline, when he confessed, he didn't know what Dana looked like, only that she was a haole girl, white girl. She didn't know what her hair color was. He didn't know what she was wearing. She was wearing cut-off jeans, and he did not know that. He did not know the location of either crime scene. 3 key witnesses were not called. Within 24 hours, the police had 3 witnesses. They saw a shirtless man in a 1970s pickup truck about 5 p.m. at crime scene 1. 2 of these witnesses, Eric Carl Smith and his girlfriend Karina, saw him place a human being into the bed of his truck. There's little doubt in our opinion that that human being was Dana Ireland. The 3 witnesses did not testify at either trial. After the DNA didn't match the 3 individuals, 6 new witnesses came forward. 3 were incarcerated, convicted felons who each got time off their sentences in exchange for their testimony. 3 other witnesses, lay witnesses, testified that the T-shirt belonged to Frank Pauline. The last red flag, the FBI has investigated, consulted on, and studied thousands of sexual homicides. The FBI profilers will tell you that this is a disorganized sexual homicide. They will tell you this crime is usually committed, if not always, by a single perpetrator. The thought that there's 3 or 4 perpetrators is not backed up by any study of crime. In fact, all the evidence, DNA, bite mark, T-shirt, all indicates one person was the killer. So these are pictures of the 3 defendants that were convicted, Frank, Ian, Sean. We believe they're innocent. On the left, Amanda Knox. She was a friend and classmate of my daughter's at Seattle Prep High School. They carpooled together for 4 years. Amanda was convicted of a 2007 rape and murder in Italy. She spent 4 years in an Italian prison. In 2015, the Supreme Court of Italy declared her innocent. Not just not guilty. The actual court says she's innocent. She and her co-defendant were totally exonerated. In the middle is Chris Tapp. Chris was convicted of the 1996 rape and murder of Angie Dodge in Idaho. He was released. We were able to help Judges for Justice from prison in 2017. Last month, on May 15th, that creepy guy with the beard, he was arrested. His DNA is a match for the male DNA left at the scene, and he gave a full confession to murdering Angie Dodge. And that's obviously a picture of Angie Dodge. Now, the Hawaii case, the Italy case, Amanda Knox case, and the Idaho case have striking similarities. One, the underlying crime is a shocking sexual homicide. 2, male DNA left at the scene does not match the people convicted. 3, and this is probably one of the bigger ones, in each case, inflammatory media convicted the defendants long before they ever got to a trial. Okay, the scale of the problem. The University of Michigan Law School keeps a website named the National Registry of Exonerations. Since 1989, there have been 2,000, this is for serious felonies, there have been 2,449 exonerations in the United States of America. 117 of these men had been on death row, but they're now out walking around, a judge agreeing that they are innocent. So, the United States has 3,143 counties, or county equivalents. Each one has their own elected prosecutor. When a county has a wrongful conviction in the United States of America, the prosecutor is not particularly concerned with how we're going to prevent wrongful convictions in the future. Canada, on the other hand, is one federal system of prosecution. And in the 1990s, they had 3 egregious wrongful convictions. They decided we're going to study those to determine how we can prevent wrongful convictions in the future. The Canadian prosecutors issued their report in 2004. A major finding conclusion was, quote, a leading cause of wrongful convictions in Canada and in other countries is tunnel vision and its perverse byproduct of noble cause corruption. So, there are deep, subconscious, psychological drivers behind wrongful convictions. And for us, it's often, or in our cases, it always starts with a shocking crime. A shocking crime is deeply emotional to us all. It turns our stomach, it generates fear within us. When a shocking crime goes unsolved, pressure mounts on the police and prosecutors. The community is in fear and demands justice. Find this deviant killer. The pressure on the police leads to tunnel vision. This in turn leads to the perverse byproduct of noble cause corruption. This is what we call, Judges for Justice calls, the wrongful conviction climate. So let's look at the Hawaii case. Obviously, Dana, Ireland, shocking crime. It's deviant. It generates fear. This is a 1993 picture of a citizens group named Citizens for Justice for Victims of Violence. Notice the Dana, Ireland sign there. They are protesting violent crime, and they are walking around police headquarters in Hilo. Congresswoman Patsy Mink of Hawaii put pressure on Hawaii County by asking for a meeting about the Dana, Ireland case. The governor, Ben Cayetano, U.S. Senator John Warner from Virginia, also contacted and put pressure on Hawaii County law enforcement. On one side, law enforcement had the citizens marching around the headquarters. On the other side, they had the politicians coming down on them. This put a lot of pressure on law enforcement. So the pressure for results leads to tunnel vision. Now, hang with me here. This is kind of an important part. Tunnel vision is also called confirmation bias. And we all suffer from it, or it helps us all, whatever. And it's not a simple concept. When a human being has a problem, and then they come to an answer, a solution, they form a subconscious, the key here is it's subconscious, we don't even know it's happening. Bias, they form a subconscious bias for their answer. They see evidence, no matter how remote or sketchy, that confirms their bias. Confirmation bias. They reject evidence, no matter how probative, that is inconsistent with their bias. An example, think about the car you're driving. At one point in time, you had a transportation problem, and that car became your solution. Ever since you have bought that car, you see your car, make, model, and color everywhere you drive. It's a subconscious thing. We don't even realize we're doing it till it gets pointed out. Now, if you take the underlying problem and make it a horrific crime that is gut-wrenching, the confirmation bias becomes, tunnel vision becomes absolutely blinding to the police, the public, eventually to the jurors. They accept evidence, no matter how sketchy, that supports their premise that Frank Pauline and the Schweitzer brothers are guilty. They reject evidence, no matter how probative, that is inconsistent with their bias. Tunnel vision confirmation bias has what the Canada report calls a perverse byproduct. Perverse byproduct, that's not good. So they call this perverse byproduct noble cause corruption. Police and prosecutors are on a noble cause. Get this deviant killer locked up and make our community safe. This corruption, the corruption can best be described, it's not bribery, it's an attitude of the end justifies the means. It's an attitude of we know this SOB is guilty, we're going to do whatever we have to do to get him locked up. They ignore DNA that does not match the defendants, or that the 2 eyewitnesses at crime scene 1 saw a man in a pickup putting a body into the bed of his truck. So, how do you get a conviction with little or no credible evidence? For example, when the DNA doesn't match. You use what Judges for Justice calls the power tools of noble cause corruption. The first is inflammatory media. There were 875 newspaper articles about the crime and the defendants prior to trial. The prosecutors dubbed Frank Pauline the walking crime wave, and this was often repeated in the press. The 3 men from the Big Island were convicted long before they ever went to trial. The second tool is dubious witnesses, unreliable, incentivized witnesses. 3 convicted and incarcerated felons testified against the defendants. Each of these 3 received favors, including time off their prison sentences. 3 other witnesses testified that the blue T-shirt belonged to Frank Pauline. After the trials were over, they got reward money, thousands of dollars for helping to arrest and convict the killers of Dana Ireland. These incentivized witnesses, these 6 witnesses, were not developed in 1999, 8 years after the crime. So I'm not going to go into coerced confessions. It's more prevalent, say, our Idaho case and the Amanda Knox case. But a fourth tool is law enforcement ignored the bite mark on Dana did not match the defendants. They ignored the 8-inch tire tracks with matching tread at both crime scenes. Law enforcement ignored that sperm DNA did not match any of the 3 defendants. Official misconduct, the 5th tool. An example, and there's a lot of them in this case, and let me say, I'm not criticizing. We're not here to judge. I might have done the same thing had I been in their shoes. Here's an example. Frank Pauline, convicted, gets 180 years. Albert Ian Schweitzer, convicted in February 2000, he gets 130 years. Next up was Sean Schweitzer, the youngest brother. In April of 2000, Sean Schweitzer and the prosecution struck a plea deal. Sean would plead guilty to a lesser charge of manslaughter. They would drop the rape charge. Then Sean would confess and implicate Frank and Ian in the murder. If Sean confessed, he'd be given credit for time served and be released from custody with 5 years probation. That's what happened. After the plea deal was struck, the prosecutor announced in a press release that Sean Schweitzer had taken a polygraph examination in support of his confession, and he passed. So if you're sitting in Honolulu watching this case, you go, end of story. The guy, eyewitness at the scene, Sean Schweitzer, said Frank and Ian did it, and he passed the polygraph. The problem was not the truth. He actually did take a polygraph, and he actually failed the polygraph. So what does Judges for Justice do? The simplest way to put it is the court of public opinion is what convicts these people, the confirmation bias that results out before they ever get to trial. And it continues there until they're hopefully eventually exonerated. We come in and we try to break through that ice that melts, that surrounds this conviction, and we try to change the court of public opinion. When we change the court of public opinion, good things happen, like judges going from bias to neutral. And once you've got a neutral judge, anybody can see that these people are innocent. But it takes a while to break through that confirmation bias. So we come in as a neutral, impartial. We don't represent defendants. We get all the case information. We do a thorough review. We only work on cases where we're absolutely sure they're innocent. We bring in relevant experts and publish their reports. Because we're judges and retired FBI, our experts who are not getting paid a dime by the defense, we get extra credibility and authority with the local press and the public for what we do. So in this photo is a picture of 5 of 10 people that were outside the Bonneville County Courthouse in Idaho in September of 2016. There's a key hearing on the Chris Tapp case, who was our Idaho case. When the judge and prosecutors drove into the courthouse that morning, they saw these pickets peacefully marching. When the judge walked into the courtroom, it was jam-packed. They had to turn people away. In the jury box was the national media filming. I really believe that those things didn't, if they did anything, they took a judge from maybe a biased judge to an impartial and neutral judge, which is where they should be. After this hearing, and these people were there because of the work we had done. These pickets were there because of the Faraz created 3 comprehensive videos of Innocence. We had great newspaper coverage. We had 2 public meetings, etc. Those people were there, and they was a grassroots group, and it was because of the work we were done. Within 6 months, Chris Tapp was released from prison. So if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know. But the answer, the point I'm driving at here is that if our campaign video of our Innocence video is no one's watching it, it's the tree falling in the forest, it's not making a sound, it's not making an impact. We don't get people to show up, say, at the courthouse or pack the courtroom. So we have, in this case, we have a comprehensive video of Innocence. It's called Who Killed Dana Ireland? And we are on a campaign, it's been out for about a year, to get people to watch the video. And we have ads in the Hawaii newspapers, we had an ad in the Bar Journal, we have ads on Facebook to get people to watch that video, Who Killed Dana Ireland? And once you watch that, you see, over the years I meet with the prosecutors in both Idaho and Hawaii, and I get along well with them. Not at first so much, but now I do. And I met with the prosecutor in April, a couple months ago, and I said, hey, you getting anybody coming up to you asking you about the video? And he says, oh yeah, all the time. And he's changed from a person who 4 years ago said, no way in heck are they getting out, they're guilty as hell, to a person who, in my opinion, is starting to see the light that they just might get out here in a little while. So this is an example of one of our ads to get people to watch the video. That's the Honolulu Paper on November 28th. And that's a blow up to get people to go and watch the comprehensive video. To date, we've generated over 8,000 views of that video. And it's 90% of those are from Hawaii. And I'd say 70% of them from the Big Island, which is where the courthouse is located. Now, Abraham Lincoln listened to this man. This is Frederick Douglass, a picture of Frederick Douglass. He was an escaped slave, taught himself to read, came to the North, he became an abolitionist and an orator. And he recognized one important thing. Well, he recognized a lot of important things. But he recognized that most people are of goodwill. Most people will not tolerate injustice. So he knew that if you were a Connecticut farmer, you really didn't care too much about what was going on in South Carolina. But if he was at your church one Sunday morning speaking, it's much harder for that Connecticut farmer to ignore the injustice that's going on in the South. His example, so let me read his quote, which is just prescient for how we do, what we're all about. I expose slavery because to expose it is to kill it. Slavery is one of those monsters of darkness to whom the light of truth is death. Once the good people of Hawaii watch that video and the buzz gets going, which it is going, good things are going to happen for the wrongfully convicted men. So you might say, what can you do? Well, one, you could watch our video. It's at judgesforjustice.org, or you can just Google who killed Dana Ireland, and it'll pop up. Two, post it on social media. And we are a 501c3, and if you go to our website, there's a little donate button, free to donate. Most of us work, Jay and I, Karen, Faraz, most of us work pro bono for free. But we have hard costs, like accounting, some other costs, and mainly the advertising, like in the newspapers, to get people to watch. So that's what we're going to come out with a part 2 of Justice for Dana soon, and we really need to get we need to get money to drive that purchase of advertising. Now, if any of you have a charitable foundation or know of a charitable foundation, because we're a 501c3, we can receive gifts and grants from charitable foundation. So if you're connected to a charitable foundation, let me know and see if they'll allow me to come in and make a presentation like this to see if I could possibly get a grant from that foundation. So I can't thank you all enough for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening.